everybody, welcome back. I'm here once again with John Walkup from UrbanDigs.com. We're here talking today a little bit about the new changes to the tax law. I know that a lot of people out there, a lot of you buyers and sellers have questions about the new tax law and how it might affect you, how it might affect the New York real estate market, whether the market's going to go down the toilet, or whether what the effect is going to be. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. John,
sure.
We talked in a previous video about UrbanDigs.com.
Right.
Just to review for everybody, please click the link above, and it'll take you back to a video about John Walkup's company, UrbanDigs. They're a fantastic data company. They do real-time market data on the New York real estate market, so they're really experts on the New York real estate market over the last 8 or 9 years. And that's why I've brought John in to talk to us a little bit today about what his opinion is on how the tax laws will affect the New York real estate market. So, first of all, let's talk about the actual tax change.
Okay.
Right? The law basically lowered the deduction possible for mortgage interest.
That's
it
right.
was previously $1 million, and it's been lowered now to $750,000.
Correct.
Right? So what that means is that mortgages up to $750,000, you can use the interest on that you can claim the interest on that as a tax deduction.
That's right.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to clarify that for everybody. Now, there's also another part of that, which was the state tax and property tax deduction.
Right.
And that's been capped now at $10,000.
Right.
Right? Now, and that's a combined total, I believe, between state and local tax and property tax. The combined total is capped at $10,000, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, great. So, now, what is your opinion in general about how this will affect the New York real estate market over the coming year?
Well, I think it's a very good question. Let me say this in the first part, because it really hits a bit of a sweet spot. Because you're talking, and I think one of the things that you pointed out when you first asked me this question was, what's the price where this hits? And I think you're the only person that actually did the math to actually break down to a price of about $970 with all the down payments and stuff. You come to that mortgage, at which point you can deduct the interest rate.
Right. I just want to jump in here real quick.
Sure.
We're assuming a 20% down payment.
Right.
Right.
Sort of standard down payment.
Right.
for
Standard
co-ops,
down payment with an 80% loan
Right.
or loan to value ratio. We're looking at $937,000
somewhere in there, right?
And some.
Right.
Where we're basically above that, you're already over a $750,000 mortgage, correct?
Right, that's correct.
So go on.
No, I was going to say, so at that level, does it change the affordability? Slightly. Is that going to make an effect? It's really difficult to tell, and one of the things that we've learned at UrbanDigs is we don't really like to do predictions so much.
Right.
Frankly, in order to back out the effects of what the tax change you're going to have, you're going to have a year of sort of uninterrupted sales, with the only difference being that the tax changes. That being said, there's a lot of stuff going on outside of the tax changes, not to mention what's happening in the equity markets or the credit markets. The crypto markets these days are really capturing everyone's attention. Aside from that, you have internal real estate market mechanics, which are sort of driving a lot of these things sort of on their own.
I want to stop you right there because
Sure.
you bring up a point that was actually the main thrust of what I was thinking. And just to back up a step or two, you mentioned that you don't like to predict the future. I don't either. None of us know what's going to happen in the market. We can make an educated guess. That's the best we can do.
Exactly.
And really, real estate in general is a game of hindsight, right? But one of the things that we did kind of hint at is that the price point at which these changes to the tax law kind of become irrelevant is around $950,000 to a little over $1 million.
Right.
And one of the things that we previously talked about in our phone conversation a couple of weeks back was that most of the New York market's already above that point, right?
That's correct.
So in that regard, at least, it really isn't going to affect a large portion of the inventory that's out there on the market, because I think you said only about 20% of the market is between 950 and 1.5
That's correct. I
million.
mean, we've seen a progressive reflation in Manhattan real estate since 2012. Really, I mean, we've just been really cranking up, and we've kind of topped out a little bit. And I should point out that the market here is extremely price point specific, and it's very variable. So what's happening in the condo 3 million market is night and day different than what's happening in the 1.5 million co-op market.
Right.
I mean, the co-op market has been very strong, very resilient. The condo market has taken some hits. That said, looking at the tax changes compared to what's happening in these markets are far more dynamic and far more powerful than I think the tax cuts, the tax act is going to affect them.
And I would tend to agree. I think that people who want to live in Manhattan especially, they already know it's going to be expensive, and they want to live in Manhattan almost regardless of price, it seems.
Right.
And whether there's going to be a little bit less or more tax deductibility is generally not the most important consideration for most buyers. And I feel that if sellers are worried that the market for their apartment is going to disappear, I think that that's not going to be a function of the tax laws necessarily, but more what you're talking about, overall broad market forces in the New York real estate market. Is that a fair statement?
That's a very fair statement, and one of the other things that we've heard anecdotally, and I don't really like to use anecdotal evidence so much, but these are the kind of things you can't really quantify in data yet because it's still very early. But I'm hearing from a lot of people who are having clients coming from the suburbs saying, listen, I can't take my local taxes off anymore, and I have this gigantic commute. Suddenly Manhattan seems like a great place. The quality of living has never been higher, and suddenly the affordability ratio is a lot better.
Right.
So,
and I think that that's a key point, is that it's not necessarily so much about the tax deductibility, but about lifestyle. And that sort of that calculus of where that break point is going to be key for buyers and for sellers.
That's right. So even if you lose a few, you lose a few people to the buyer pool due to the mortgage interest deduction, you might gain those back in people who have lost their bigger deductions for state and local taxes coming back into the city.
So, for example, people in Jersey who pay very high property taxes
exactly
might have a reason to look elsewhere now.
Right, and they can reduce their hour-long commute to a 15-minute walk.
Exactly. Now, one thing, because I do have quite a few first-time buyers and co-op owners who are sort of at a lower price point, and I'm curious about what you feel about this. I wonder if people who are below that $937,000 threshold, who are in the lower price brackets, might actually see a boost in demand for their apartments, and buyers might see a little bit more competition in that price bracket because now people are going to be pushed down into that lower price segment as they're looking to capture the mortgage interest deduction.
It's a great question. I mean, first of all, I should say that there's been robust demand for that price segment to begin with.
Right.
It's not as fervent as it was a few years ago, but the demand is still there, and properly priced apartments are moving at very steady paces. They're not lingering on the market. So if you're talking about adding more people to a buyer pool in which supply is still somewhat constricted, yeah, you're gonna see some prices pop here and there.
Yeah. So and that's one thing that again, we don't know this for sure.
No,
we're just kind of making educated guesses and conjecture about what might happen. But it is a possibility that people in the lower price segments might see a bump in demand for their property, therefore pushing prices up a little higher, and buyers might see a little extra competition in those lower price points below the $1 million mark in New York City over the coming year. So, John, just wrap all of this up for us in an easy nutshell, if that's even possible.
No, I mean, the nutshell is essentially that Manhattan real estate is far more correlated to the equity and the credit markets than it is to tax deductions and little sort of monthly items like that. Generally speaking, if the equity markets are not correcting, if they're sort of holding steady, up a little bit, maybe down a little bit, but not down 10% territory, you can expect Manhattan real estate market to kind of keep on keeping on.
And do you see any kind of bubble?
There was a bubble. I think you saw a bubble in some of the higher end ultra luxury places, and I think that bubble has popped, and frankly it looks like I'm starting to see signs of stabilization in the upper price reaches. Don't forget that the dollar currently, as we speak here, February 2nd, the dollar is weaker. That basically makes a lot of these ultra luxury condos on sale to foreign buyers, so you can see some of these people coming back again. It's pure conjecture, but these are the sort of macro things that drive different markets.
Absolutely, and that's really what I really want to drive home in this video, is that really at the end of the day, this is about macroeconomic forces more than the mortgage interest deduction or the property tax deduction.
Exactly.
Because this market is so special and so in demand that really it's the macroeconomic forces that are going to dictate, where the housing market goes. We've seen, using your app and your charts, we've seen, inventory kind of, the price growth in inventory kind of slow over the last year or two.
Mm-hmm.
I think 2016 was kind of like, peak year as far as prices, and things kind of leveled out a little bit. You mentioned that the luxury market is now stabilizing because it did kind of soften tremendously over the last year or so. Do you think that price growth will continue in the overall market over this coming year, just given what's happening in macroeconomically?
Well, I think it depends on what sub-market you're talking about. If you're talking about 1 to 2 bedroom co-ops, chances are yes. Are we going to see a big price appreciation? Most likely not. We've been seeing steady 1% to 3% growth. Do I think that will continue? I tend to think so, unless, all bets are, if the credit market and equity markets crash, listen, all bets are off.
Right.
That's really the one string we have to watch out for.
And that's really the one thing that people never, sellers and buyers often don't think about. Sellers often, in the conversation that I have with them is, oh, well, the market is hot. And they say that because prices are very, very high at that particular moment. And that's true, but you never know what's around the corner.
Exactly.
2008 caught everybody off guard.
That's right.
Well, not everybody, but most of us, right?
Right.
And within literally a matter of 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
everything had changed.
Right.
And if you're a seller and you want to sell or you're considering selling, you don't want to try and time the market. You want to sell because you want to move on with your life and do something new.
That's right. And so then our job is to say, all right, well, how much can you get for your apartment and how long is it going to take you? And that's exactly what we're going to power you. And there's one chart I'll tell you about, which quickly is called our volatility index. That's a real-time look at market strength. And if you look at Manhattan right now, we're sort of in a very fairly balanced market. And that's looking at everything. As you start to drill down into specific markets, it's far more of a seller's market in the co-ops than it is in the condos. The upper level condos is a very strong buyer's market right now. There are deals to be had, and I think we've kind of bottomed out. Just pure conjecture. Co-op market, again, the sellers still have the upper hand. So it really depends on what you're looking at, and really depends on what segment of data is relevant to you.
Awesome. Well, John, thanks so much for having this conversation about the tax law and about the market in general. I hope that everybody out there has found this helpful. Remember that you can never time the market. You never know what's around the corner. If you're looking to sell, then please do get in touch. Links are in the comments below. You can reach out to me directly, and we can talk about what you need to get your home sold quickly and for the top dollar. And if you're looking to buy, the same thing. Please do get in touch, and I'd love to have a conversation with you about how you can buy and what the condition of the market is right now, so that you're strategically placed to win against other buyers who are competing against you. Thanks so much. Hope to see you here again.
Thank you.